Today, we delve into a distressing narrative. It's the story of Jessica Lester and her journey entwined with Matthew Boynton, her future spouse, whom she met during their high school days. Jessica, younger than Matthew, found him captivating from the start, partly due to his lineage, his grandfather being the sheriff of their small town in Griffin, Georgia. This familial tie endowed Matthew with a certain stature and privileges in the community, coupled with his family's wealth evident in his attire, often adorned with prestigious brands like Hollister and Ralph Lauren. At 16, Jessica's pregnancy came unexpectedly, challenging her and Matthew, then her boyfriend. Despite supportive grandparents, Jessica's resolve was to build a life with Matthew. By December 2014, they appeared the ideal couple outwardly. Yet, hidden were Jessica's brief affair and subsequent pregnancy, which led to their marriage, Matthew willingly accepting the child as his own. Inspired by his grandfather's law enforcement career, Matthew pursued a similar path, starting as a jailer and eventually becoming a patrol officer. Their life in Griffin saw them as parents of two, but Sheriff Wendell Beam's influence loomed large. Jessica, lacking personal resources, often relied on Matthew or his grandfather for basic needs. However, beneath the facade of a perfect couple lay turmoil. In spring 2016, Jessica discovered Matthew's infidelity with a 911 dispatcher named Courtney, prompting her to seek legal advice with her grandmother. Plans were made for Jessica and her children to move out on April 15th, with Jessica securing a job at a chiropractor's office. That evening, an argument erupted between Jessica and Matthew at Walmart, captured by CCTV. Later, Matthew made a distressing call to 911, reporting Jessica's suicidal thoughts. As officers rushed to their apartment, Matthew feared for Jessica and their children's safety, especially after hearing gunshots from inside. Despite efforts to reach Jessica, she remained unresponsive. Matthew anxiously awaited the officers' arrival, knowing his family's lives hung in the balance. When the officers arrived at Matthew and Jessica's apartment, Matthew informed them that he believed Jessica was in the master bedroom closet, expressing his hope that she hadn't harmed the children. Undeterred by the locked closet, the officers decided to force their way in to locate Jessica. Inside, they found Jessica slumped over with a Glock .40 caliber pistol nearby, realizing it belonged to Matthew, who worked in law enforcement. They removed Jessica from the closet and placed her on the bedroom floor, discovering she had sustained a gunshot wound to the head, yet miraculously remained alive. Quickly, they rushed her to an awaiting ambulance for urgent medical attention. Matthew, visibly shaken, wept openly, consumed by love and concern for his wife. He grappled with guilt and regret, wishing he had arrived home sooner to prevent the tragic event. As Jessica was airlifted to Atlanta Medical Center, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation took over the investigation due to conflicts of interest involving Matthew's roles in law enforcement and his familial connections to the local sheriff's department. Placed on administrative leave, Matthew awaited the investigation's outcome. Meanwhile, Sheriff Wendell Beam delivered the devastating news to Jessica's family. The GBI's search of the apartment revealed bullet holes in the closet, but no blood splatter, raising suspicions. Neighbors reported hearing gunshots and an argument, noting the unusual locked closets in the building. Matthew was later brought in for questioning, where he disclosed receiving a distressing text from Jessica before rushing to the apartment, hearing gunshots upon arrival. Desperate to help, he recounted his frantic efforts to reach Jessica, including retrieving his service radio. As he dashed outside, tears streaming down his face, he wore an expression of shock. Matthew claimed to have heard gunshots around 1 a.m., but his account clashed with the timeline provided by Jessica and his neighbors. According to the neighbor, the shots rang out between 10:45 p.m. and midnight. When officers arrived at Jessica's family home to deliver the news of her attempted suicide using Matthew's service weapon, there was an immediate sense that something was awry. Jessica's grandmother, who knew her intimately, sensed a discrepancy. She vividly remembered an occasion when Jessica adamantly declined to join her other grandchildren in target shooting, citing her discomfort with firearms. This memory deepened her skepticism about Jessica's alleged suicide attempt, especially considering her strong bond with her children. Moreover, Jessica's upbringing added another layer of doubt regarding her suicidal intentions. Raised by her grandparents without parents, she had formed a tight-knit family unit. It seemed implausible to them that she would willingly abandon her two young sons. Upon her arrival at Atlanta Medical Center, Jessica's hospital intake form painted a grim picture of a 19-year-old who had supposedly shot herself in the right side of her skull. However, the trauma surgeon's analysis offered a contrasting perspective. The absence of gunpowder residue on Jessica's hands suggested she hadn't pulled the trigger herself. Additionally, the trajectory of the wound, positioned at the top of her skull, hinted at a highly unusual scenario. Further examination of Jessica's surroundings revealed bullet indentations in her closet wall, implying the possibility of external involvement in the incident. At Atlanta Medical Center, Jessica underwent numerous medical procedures, including the insertion of an intracranial pressure monitor to manage swelling. Placed in a medically induced coma to aid her recovery and minimize further damage to her brain, each step was taken to facilitate her healing process and ensure her well-being. Meanwhile, following the tragedy, Jessica's husband Matthew decided to move himself and their two sons into the home of his girlfriend, Courtney. However, their relationship ended a few weeks later. In a subsequent police interview, Courtney expressed concerns about Matthew's behavior, describing him as intimidating. During Jessica's initial 3 weeks in the hospital, Matthew visited her only once after she spent 3 weeks in a medically induced coma. Despite this, Jessica's recovery progressed remarkably, earning her the nickname Miracle Child from the Atlanta Medical Center staff. Although Jessica had sustained a fractured skull, neither bullet had penetrated it. About a week after awakening from her coma, Jessica was interviewed by agents from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. However, her memory of the fateful night was hazy, recalling only a trip to Walmart with her sons and Matthew. She couldn't recall anything beyond that. When questioned about her handling of Matthew's service weapon, Jessica denied any prior experience, stating she didn't know how to unlock the holster's safety lever. When asked if she had ever contemplated harming herself, Jessica became emotional, vehemently denying such thoughts. She tearfully explained that her love for her children prevented her from considering such actions. After a month in the hospital, Jessica was slated for transfer to a rehabilitation program. However, the lack of insurance posed a significant obstacle. Upon her release, Jessica was discharged into the care of her grandparents. She displayed a noticeable limp and grappled with various symptoms, including headaches, memory lapses, ringing in her ears, and numbness on her left side. Just 3 days after leaving Atlanta Medical Center, a deputy from the sheriff's office served Jessica with a family violence protective order. A court issued this order in response to a petition filed by Matthew, asserting probable cause of past and potential future family violence. The order prohibited Jessica from coming within 300 yards of Matthew or their children. During the trial, the judge dismissed the protective order between Matthew and Jessica, but granted Matthew full custody of their children. However, Jessica was allowed supervised visits with her children for up to 4 hours every Sunday. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation, GBI, conducted a thorough investigation into Jessica's death. Forensic analysis of Matthew's service weapon revealed Jessica's DNA on the handle, safety, and trigger. This evidence led GBI agents to suspect Jessica of self-inflicted harm. After over 4 months of investigation, the GBI concluded that Jessica had indeed shot herself, finding no evidence implicating Matthew or anyone else in the incident. Consequently, the case was closed, and Matthew was deemed innocent. In December 2016, Jessica reported to the Griffin Police Department that Matthew had not returned her belongings, including a retainer, after she emerged from a coma. Despite Matthew's initial denial under oath, the police later found Jessica's belongings in his possession. This led to Matthew's resignation from the police department and charges of making false statements and violating his oath of office, though he was not prosecuted. In 2018, Matthew faced challenges as his children refused to stay with him, expressing their preference to be with Jessica. Jessica reported this to Child Protective Services, leading to a full-time arrangement with her. The case was closed based on recommendations from the children's psychologist, advising against further contact with Matthew. Since the incident, Jessica relocated north of Griffin, Georgia, seeking a fresh start. She found love and got engaged to a supportive partner, welcoming a son into their family, bringing her joy and new purpose in life.
Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by the darker side of human nature and intrigued by the mysteries surrounding crime and murder, you're in the right place. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest chilling cases and gripping investigations. Remember, the truth is often stranger than fiction, and there's always more to uncover. Stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.